Host of the More We Know podcast for the Gen Zs and Millennials. I know I say that. I say it's for the Gen Zs and Millennials. And yeah, although that is the focus, this podcast is really for anyone. But I look back at my time in college and I wish I had something like this. I wish I had a podcast where I could learn from mentors or experts in their industries or, fellow Gen Zs that are talking about real world topics, that are talking about what is a credit card APR, what is investing, what does all this mean. What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the More We Know podcast. My name is Mir and I am your host. Real quick, before this amazing podcast starts with Dr. Renee, make sure you subscribe to the podcast on YouTube, on Apple, on Spotify, wherever you go get your podcast, and leave a like and a comment. It would really mean a lot. On the podcast, we have Dr. Renee Dua, who is the Chief Medical Officer and co-founder of the app Heal. If you haven't heard of the app Heal, make sure to go check it out because this app is phenomenal. It is essentially like Uber, but for doctors. So if you're the doctor, just like you're the driver, you can go do house calls for patients. And if you're the patient, aka you watching this potentially, you can request a doctor to come to your house for a house call. That's right. And by the way, you don't even need health insurance. So if you guys need to hear the story of Heal, but it was essentially created after she spent 7 hours in an emergency room with her son. And as a doctor and a mother, she shared that frustration of waiting for weeks for a doctor's appointment. So she couldn't do it and she launched Heal. And as you guys know, with entrepreneurship, you launch based on real world problems that you have or you see that happen, and you launch a business in the process. So she has won many awards. They just raised $100+ million from Humana, and they have all-star celebrity investors on the Heal board that have invested in Heal. So it's phenomenal what they've been able to accomplish. It's phenomenal what they're doing. Heal is one of the CNBC 50 top disruptors, and it's an amazing company. And right now you're going to have her as your mentor. Dr. Renee Dua is going to be your mentor for the next hour. She's going to actually mentor you through what it's like to launch a company, how to raise capital, how to fight through the yeses and nos, competition, her biggest struggles, her challenges, how she's winning. She's your mentor for the next hour. So get ready, guys. Without further ado, Dr. Renee Dua. What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to the More We Know podcast. I am your host, Mir. This podcast is a mentorship in your pocket for the Gen Zs and Millennials. Today, we have a terrific guest by the name of Dr. Renee Dua, who is a board-certified nephrologist and also the founder and chief medical officer of Heal, a company based out of LA that provides on-demand house calls from doctors. Heal also received an investment of $100 million from Humana back in July of 2020. They are doing phenomenal things, and it is such an honor to have you on today. Thank you so much for being on.
Well, thanks so much for having me.
Thank you. And just to get started, this is a mentorship in our pocket, but I want to just go backwards. I understand your background, where you went to school, but can you talk about, growing up and going to high school and college and that process for the audience?
Sure, absolutely. And, I'm very lucky, right? I'm a very privileged person. So to be clear, the way I grew up, and so much of how you grow up changes who you become, right? To whom you're born and where. And so both of my parents are doctors. I'm from Los Angeles. I've grown up, honestly, with all the privilege in the world. And having two parents as doctors, they were, in fact, not so excited about me being a doctor, only because they really thought it was going to be a lot of hard work and a very different environment than the one that they have grown up in. And so just before I finished college and got accepted to medical school, I had already had a teaching job, right? And so I was just about to go back and teach science and math at a high school in Los Angeles, and I got accepted to medical school. And I thought, you know what? This is a unique opportunity for me to teach people. And so I did decide to go to medical school. But it really was one of these debates in my house about, in high school, I was so, excited about school. I was a star student. I did all the sports. I was very involved. But was the right career path for me medicine? It was something that we discussed even then.
So how do you debate that with family? Because now, especially in my generation, we go through that back and forth with our parents, especially in my culture. It happens all the time where, you need to do this, you need to do that.
Yes.
How did you tackle that with your parents?
Yeah. Especially when you are from places like the Middle East or India, that Asian parent mentality. They're not happy if you're not an engineer or a lawyer or a doctor. And I have to tell you, it's a very, very tough thing to have the guts and the confidence, the very confidence that hopefully your parents have given you, to stand up to them and say, look, no, Dad, I'm fearless. I'm going to do it, Mom. I'm going to do something different. And I'll tell you, I didn't grow up thinking I would start a company. right? And even to this day, my parents are constantly worried about how many hours I put in and how hard I work. And is this going to make you money? Is this a stable lifestyle? I have children now, right? But I'll tell you something, if you don't believe in what you're doing, and I don't care if it's working at 7-Eleven or working in a hospital, if you don't believe in it, you won't last, you won't stick with it. Many people think, well, I'm in this for the money. No, you're not. You're in it because you feel challenged. You're in it because you feel like you're learning something and growing and becoming a person that you admire, and you have a function in society. If you don't have those things, you're just going to be popping from job to job. That may be okay for some people. I certainly don't think that's why you would have started a podcast or why your listeners are listening in, right? For me, no matter what you decide, if you don't care about it, if you don't believe in it, you won't succeed. And it doesn't matter what your parents tell you, right? You have to have that conviction and that integrity.
I love that you brought up that conviction, because if you don't have it and it's just what you said, just chasing whatever the
Yeah.
next hottest thing is, you'll burn out. And speaking of something like burnout, medical school is it's extremely hard work.
Yes.
So when you were in medical school, did that conviction last all 4 years?
I mean, it's such a good question. And so, even the term burnout, right? I'm older than you. And let me tell you, I should have already burned out, right? But it is my conviction that drives me. And so, when you get to a place like graduate school, or when you pick a job that is a long haul, again, you're going to go back to your inside and say, am I making a difference every day, right? In my own personal life, there are some days where it's 2 steps forward and 3 steps back. But by the end of the week, when I've made a calculation on what I've accomplished, I'm still ahead, right? And so I think that's a really important part of looking at the notion of burnout. Are you making progress? And so, to give you an example, right, if you are a talented singer and you are working at it for years and years, and you're playing in bars and you're on YouTube and you're just not making progress, after 10 years, you may take a step back and say, look, I give up. It's not working for me. But I'll tell you, you never know what's on the corner, right? And sometimes it's in that moment when you're giving up that your break comes, right? And that's the thing about conviction. If you believe in it, you keep at it, you never know what's around the corner, right? So that notion of burnout, you got to be patient, right? You have to be patient. Don't just burn out. Make a decision about what you want to do and how you're going to protect what you want to be.
Absolutely. There's an old saying that goes, patience pays, being
Yes,
able to be patient. So,
that's right.
and would you say, is there a balance though? Let's say a lot of us are chasing, especially us 20 to 23 Gen Zs are chasing this entrepreneurial dream, which you can speak of very effectively, being an entrepreneur. Is there a point where in a business that you're launching that you need to understand that, hey, maybe this isn't working out, I need to try something else? Or if you have conviction, you
Yep.
just keep pushing?
It's such an important question. And so, if you decide you want to be an entrepreneur, the first and most important thing you do is market research, right? Is there a need? Am I solving a problem? And I'm sure you've heard this many, many times. And I also think it's kind of insane that many times what you don't need is getting wildly publicized, getting tons of funding. I live here in Los Angeles, and on the corners we have these scooters, these motorized
Mhm.
scooters, and they're bikes and they're scooters, and they're on the floor and they're broken, and I see people throwing them in the ocean. I mean, it's ridiculous. It's so disrespectful to all this effort and money, right? But the question is, what problem are these things solving? Theoretically, they're solving the transportation problem, right? So, is the way that they are solving the problem actually solving the problem? And so, when you think about what issue you want to rectify, you need to have a plan, a business plan through and through, that maybe this is a tiny problem to solve or a giant problem to solve, but how am I going to see it through? And if it goes wrong X way and Y way and Z way, what are the solutions I have prepared to make sure that I don't, fall out of relativity? What happens to make sure I am still important and relevant?
That makes sense. That's really good information there. And I understand with Heal, it was founded not necessarily on the idea of you sitting down one day, and correct me if I'm wrong, on just market research, but it was a situation that happened in a hospital, correct, with your child?
I started having children, and I did have multiple issues having children, but I did do market research. I did sit down, and I myself, as a struggling doctor on the verge of burnout, right, had this conversation with my husband, and I said, gosh, I'm being a terrible mom, I'm being a terrible doctor, I'm a terrible wife. How do I take a step back? Hilariously, I used to think I was working too hard, right? I used to think, oh my God, this is just too much on my plate. If only I knew, right, where I'd be now. But what what I think is important to share about that experience is I did sit down and I did see who is doing house calls, who is using a software platform to bridge the gap between patient and doctor, and nobody was doing it, right? And so again, I work very hard as a quote entrepreneur and the founder of this company now, but I do want to be clear that what I was trying to solve was multiple things. I wanted to get out of the way of the doctor-patient relationship, but I didn't want doctors to burn out. I wanted doctors to use a software platform to deliver excellent care and then take a break, right? And I wanted patients to get excellent care without freaking out about where their doctor was or if their doctor would explain things to them. So these were the problems which, in retrospect, we've solved so many others, but these were the problems we wanted to get in front of. How do we execute on an excellent doctor-patient relationship using software? That was really it, delivering access. And again, we've done a lot since then, but I do want to be clear. I did the research, I saw the need, and I stuck with it. And there is not a day that I go to bed at night and think, wow, I've solved so many problems. Oh my God, I'm, just the best. Thank the world for me. That is the literal opposite of what I do every day. Every day I go to bed at night and I think these are the 3 things I did, but I have 40 things to do this week, right? And I just keep going and going.
So within that market research, I mean, number one, it's remarkable because, like I said, my parents being medical doctors, I don't see a lot of medical doctors have the business background necessarily. They're
Yes.
extremely smart, the smartest people I'll ever meet, but
Yeah.
that business entrepreneurial drive I haven't seen in many doctors, at least in my experience. So number one, that's remarkable that you were able to actually launch a company being a medical doctor, knowing the hours that you guys work. But in doing your market research, something that hinders a lot of entrepreneurs is once you start looking at the competition. So what happened when you were sitting there doing the research and not being like, oh my gosh, Teladoc, look how much cash they have, they can do this. What, like, how do you stop that fear of the competition?
There's so much room in this space, and frankly, depending on what company you decide to start, that's part of your market research. Is there room? Am I building a company that Teladoc should buy? Am I building a company that Amazon should buy? Am I building a company that United Healthcare should buy? Am I changing the world? I don't know, right? And so that's part of that research, and that's part of your goals. What do you want to solve? And if it's so unique, someone's going to be paying attention either to get you out of their way and buy you, or buy you and make you the prominent way to do and solve problems, right? So that should not hinder you at all. And I'll say, to your point about doctors being non per se entrepreneurial, I think in medical school, we aren't taught tech. We aren't taught software, right? And I bet you I'm not so far off from your parents' age, just to give you an idea, right? Because you're young. But I'll tell you, that's also changing, right? In medical school, you will see that doctors are learning how to do video visits, and you will see that doctors are dealing with remote monitoring. And these are all things that I do on my platform every day, right? So you will see that that changes. The thing about being a doctor is you're in the business of service, right? You're taught that. You're given an oath, you live by that oath, and you serve your patients, especially when you're a really good doctor. And so it's less about making money. And I'll tell you, at Heal, I never go to bed at night thinking, tomorrow I'm going to be a billionaire. I've never done that in 7 years, right? And I've taken a massive pay cut to work at this company and start this endeavor, to be clear, right? But I'm privileged to be able to do it. And I want to stick with it because I have a big vision for how I can deliver access to care. So I think if you go into this thinking, I'm going to be a billionaire, again, we're back to that conviction and integrity part, right? That may not be the drive that's big enough, right? People who have lots of money, more often than not, they're in it for the service. They're in it for the better that they're bringing to society, that function that they're bringing.
And doctor, I think you hit it on the money there. And I'll be honest, the thousands of listeners that listen in, a lot of us do struggle with the concept of it's what's hot, right? If you do a startup, you're going to become
Yeah,
a billionaire. It's the scene. But even mentors that I have in my field, a mentor that just made 300-400 million dollars, I see that he still works like there's 24 hours,
absolutely.
someone looking to beat him, like
Yeah.
still works. So there's that, what you said. I just feel like it's so important that you highlight that conviction and passion. And for the
Yes.
audience to hear someone like you,
Yes.
who is a medical doctor, who is
Yes.
doing a startup company like yours, which is not really even a startup anymore, but
Yeah.
that conviction, I think, is one of the biggest takeaways, that you never give that
Yeah.
up, I'm sure, when
Yeah.
things go wrong.
There is not at no point have I said, okay, I can sit back. At no point have I done that. And I probably won't. Even if Heal sells or something amazing happens with Heal, I will go on to the next vision, or I will keep working at this vision to ensure that I am delivering on that promise I made all those years ago.
Yeah, so let's actually talk about Heal. For I'm familiar with it. I've done research, and I know a lot of people are familiar with it. But can you walk us through just a quick background of what exactly it is? I understand it's an Uber-like service, house calls, but can you talk to the audience about it a little
Sure,
bit?
sure. What Heal is a software platform that allows you to have a doctor visit, right? And so very often we will start with a doctor house call, and we will show up in Chicago and we will take care of you. We will look at the way you live and make decisions about how we can improve your wellness. While we're there, we'll make sure that you have access to our video platform. If you're a diabetic, we'll make sure that you have access to a glucometer, and we'll check your blood sugars and do a video chat a week later, right? So we do not anticipate that we are going to be sitting in your living room all the time in house calls. We anticipate that you're going to use our software to stay in touch with us with face-to-face interactions. And that's what we've really built, is this high-touch patient experience where a patient can interact with her doctor using our platform and stay out of the hospital, stay home.
And is your platform more of an app, web-based?
It's both. And we have a toll-free number too, right? Because we really are in the business of delivering access, right? We have a cash pay price. You do not have to have insurance to work with us. We are very focused on delivering to patients all over the country. If you look at a place like Chicago, right? There are parts of Chicago where people have their doctor on speed dial. It's like a waiter, who delivers some unnecessary medicine. There are other parts of Chicago where patients haven't seen a doctor for 2 years, right? They don't know that they have medical problems. We really want to exist in communities like that, where there are social aspects to why patients do not have good access to care. And for example, in Chicago, we're very focused on that right now. We just launched in Chicago about a month ago, right? So we are now in 11 states and growing, and this is exactly what we do. We're not a concierge. We are delivering on that access promise.
And within that access promise, I know there's one issue that I see with a lot of people that I know is people are on that DACA, documented students program, where they don't necessarily
Yes,
have healthcare. A lot of people that
yes,
just aren't able to have that benefit that, you and I have, having healthcare, right? So you guys are solving such a unique social aspect, being that, if I'm, just to be clear, so if I don't have health insurance, I can still request a doctor.
absolutely. Absolutely. And this is a very popular use case for Heal, right? College campus, right? Or young person who's out of work right now because of the pandemic, right?
Mm.
But still does need medication or birth control, or, has anxiety and panic, right? We have teletherapy services, right? So it is one of these platforms where it's all comers. And we want everyone to understand there is never a need to wait to get access, especially on our platform. We make it very simple.
Right. And then in terms of the actual house calls, when a doctor needs to come, is that process, how does that process look like?
Yeah, it's very simple. If you can book on the app, you can book on the web, you can book by calling that 800 number, right? And based on where you are and the location of our medical teams, if we are in your area, we will deliver a house call.
Wow. Wow. And how exactly does Heal make money then, in terms of?
So we are in network with multiple payers. And so when we deliver value and patients stay home and out of the hospital, they don't get unnecessary medical care. We enjoy a portion of that money that's saved, right? So we've built our contracts out this way. And also, of course, we have, for example, large businesses that want us to come on site and do a whole bunch of physical exams or flu shots or whatnot. And so we get paid for these things.
That is really unique. That's really cool. And if,
Yeah,
I know my audience is mainly Gen Zs and millennials, but if for some reason there are doctors listening to it as well, which can very well be the
sure.
case, or even my parents, for example, how do doctors get involved in this?
So most doctors that have joined our team have literally reached out to me by email, right? I've heard about you. I heard about you on this podcast and I want to work with you, right? And I am often the first person that our doctors talk to find out if we should work together because I know what kind of a doctor I'm looking for. And I know what, if they heard about us organically, I know what's troubling them, why they might even be interested in working with us, right? We also are moving very quickly at the pace at which we hire. We have to work with recruiters and whatnot. So we meet many candidates from recruiters, and they often have heard of us or watched videos or YouTube and seen, me talk about what we're trying to accomplish at Heal.
I have to say that's really amazing though, the position that you're in, still being that first point of contact and
Oh,
answering all these
absolutely.
emails.
It's what I said, right? I know that I have conviction, and if I'm not in sales, that's the good news about me, right? I say it like it is, and if you don't like what I'm saying, don't work here, right? I was just doing an interview just before our podcast, and this woman showed up to have a video visit with me, and I said to her very clearly, if you're not interested in software, run away, right? This is not a house call service where you're showing up with a black bag and walking up to a farm, right? You must use our software to build your practice or you will not like working with us. And she said, wow, you're so direct. And I said, yes, but it's your life, right? If you're miserable, I'll be miserable. We'll both be miserable. I don't
Yeah.
want that. I want the patients to get the care they need and I want you to enjoy your work, right? So that's a very important part of what I want to be able to do.
Yeah. I love that. And being direct, you avoid any of that fluff or going back and forth. You just
100%. 100%. You know what? There's so many options for jobs for doctors and nurse practitioners right now. You can honestly get a job in an hour, right? Do what you love, right? And do what's meaningful to you. And I find that many times, especially when physicians hear about what we're doing organically, they're already so excited, right? They're already bought in. And it just makes for a great conversation with me.
Yeah, and now when physicians join on, is this something like the Uber idea where it's more, in my own time on top of the
No,
practice I'm doing?
no. In fact, it's the opposite. We hire our doctors, we employ our doctors, they have benefits, they have options in this company, right, when they're full time. And that's a really important part of that access delivery because if a doctor opts to come here when it's convenient for her, she's not building a practice. She's not taking ownership for her patients, right? Nothing could be less interesting to me than a doctor that does not want to own the relationship with her patients. Because I built an entire company out of doctors who didn't take care of me and my children, right? I won't ever let that happen again. That's very important.
That's very powerful. And again, that comes back to when launching a company, you launched due to an actual problem you had. It's not just out
That's
of thin
right.
air.
That's right. That's exactly right.
And I noticed something you said about options, for example. A lot of doctors, if I go get a job as a doctor at Northwestern right now, for example, I don't get ownership.
Mhm.
There's no any type of equity within that. So you're giving
That's right.
doctors the
You're
actual.
a clock in, clock out employee. That's right. And look, I don't want that for our doctors. I want them to be the source of education and wellness in their community. I want them to be geofenced to a degree that honestly they're walking between visits, right? Because everybody on the block knows them. You know, I want their information to be so powerful that when a patient thinks I have a problem, they think, let me call Dr. Sarah, not let me go to the ER, right? So that's what I want to do for doctors.
That's really amazing. That's really exciting to see. Now, on the concept of Heal overall in general, I know it's amazing. You guys have some famous investors. Taking in $100 million investment is very serious. You guys are clearly exploding in growth, but I know it wasn't always like that, right? So when you launched, I'm really curious, and I know the audience would love to hear just that story of the launch. You mentioned you're not necessarily in sales, but I'm sure at the start you're doing everything. You handle the sales,
I'm still doing
everything.
everything.
Never
But yeah,
stopping.
I mean, I started this company with my husband, right? His name is Nick Desai. He is a world-class fundraiser. In 3 weeks, he had put about $1.5 million of seed funding into this idea, right? We had a product person, and we hired employee number one. We built a dashboard, and we started routing and dispatching cash pay only house calls. I was the doctor, and Nick was my assistant. right? That's how we did it. In fact, one of the house calls we went on here in LA was in Beverly Hills, which is a very well-off neighborhood. And the woman to whom I was giving the house call said, "This is amazing. I want to invest in you, right? I want to give you my money." No diligence, sight unseen. She wired a whole bunch of money into our bank account the very next day, right? So to give you an idea, the business of, as you say, sales happens all the time. But I think, to be clear, you want to make sure, especially in the beginning when you're fundraising, what you're selling is your vision, right? Elon Musk is the richest man in the world. That is not because he is selling cars, right? That is because he is selling a vision of a time in our lives when all cars are electric, right? And he's getting tax credits to do it, right? So I am very, very much of the opinion that, to your point, it's sales, but it's sales of a vision, right? And you cannot veer from that vision. If you veer, you won't have a product that's worth anything anymore.
And that vision has been the same throughout all the years you've been acting.
Amazingly, yes. Now, if you look at the press I did 7 years ago, it's not like I talk about it, right? Because again, I mean, we're also operating in a more sleuth-like, underground fashion as we're building out our proprietary software. But yes, we were always going to be bigger than the house call. It's kind of pathetic that the healthcare industry waited for a pandemic to get interested about remote monitoring and video, right? For us, that was always the plan, because you cannot expect doctors to do everything. There aren't enough, and they can't. They will burn out. So we have to find ways to support doctors so they can do excellent patient care. And this was Heal's model years ago.
Yeah, and to your credit, this is something you guys have been doing before a pandemic hit, before we've seen explosive growth in a lot of these telehealth platforms. Was the pandemic the highest year of growth for your company?
It was a very big part of our growth, but I will say that the most critical part of our growth has been focusing on vulnerable populations, right? Seniors, children. This is really where our marketing campaigns have been.
Gotcha. And on that concept of raising capital, you were a doctor. Obviously, you didn't have an MBA or anything, but you know your stuff. But was there any type of challenges when, if someone's going to give me this amount of money, how do I divest the ownership? How do I know what percentage I'm going to give these people? What's my valuation?
Those are privileged problems to have when you're fundraising, right? First, someone has to be able to and want to give you money because they believe in your vision and they see that there's an out, right? When someone is very rich, they are investing in you because they want their money back, right? So you can't just go on a spending spree, And so when you are sitting with someone who wants to help fundraise you, many of the conversations you're having is to show your path to profitability. And if you do your homework, you will find out most companies are not profitable, but they're visionary, right? And so again, it's that focus on that vision and getting your investors to believe in your vision. And they will stick with you if you are continuing to grow the company, right? They will. And if you're not, they won't, right? They won't. And so I think it's important to understand it's not so much like once we have the money, who gets what? First, get the money, right? Healthcare is tough because most investors are men and they don't need healthcare. And when you're very rich, you've got a doctor on speed dial. So what do you care about delivering access to people who are underprivileged? You don't, right? So that is a very challenging problem to solve, first of all, right? Right now, it's a great time to be a minority woman. So maybe, there will be interest in what I'm doing, right? But I can tell you, and you've read that women who are in startups are not getting funded right now, right? Which is pathetic and a shame, but that is the reality of fundraising. So it is not easy to fundraise. The good news is there's lots of money out there right now. There are a lot of brilliant people out there right now, brilliant ideas, right? You work together, you create a vision that has a path, and you will get funding, right? But you've got to stay smart and worry about staying funded until you are profitable.
Yeah. And I love that you said that. And it really is in 2021 that it's that pathetic that even as a minority woman, it's so hard to raise money. They look the other way, especially when you see these VCs that, put their money in the typical, white male, who a lot of those startups end up failing anyway. A lot of you see the majority
Sheep.
rate.
Yeah, they're sheep, right? They're looking for the easy way out. And again, that maybe it works a lot of the time. Maybe it works, right? But in the history of everything that works, there was a time when it didn't. And you want to find those fundraising types, those people who believe in the future of what you're doing. Healthcare is an issue on which we have a new president, right? It is a reason people came to the polls. And a lot of young people came to the polls, right? And so it's going to be very interesting to see what happens in the world of healthcare. And even the smallest ideas that focus on delivering access, that focus on social determinants of health, they're going to be a big deal right now. And on the other hand, you're going to see that giant companies like Teladoc may not know what to do, right? Because urgent care is not all that's needed. It's not all that's needed. I don't know if you read that Amazon is now going to expand into multiple states with possible house calls and more telehealth and more primary care. It's a big deal, right? Amazon is in the delivery business, right? And what they do, they don't acquire companies. They build and they crush it, right? So maybe the right idea right now is to work at Amazon and learn the tricks of the trade, right? But you've got to keep your nose to the ground to see what opportunities are out there and what the forward thinkers are thinking.
Yeah. And what do you do though in terms of companies like that? Because Amazon has crushed a lot of small startups, and I know Facebook is notorious for taking some ideas from startups and making it their own. Does that ever keep you up at night?
Of course, of course, but I just have to do more, be better, work harder, right? That's why I have not stopped working. This may or may not be still a startup, but I'm still working hard, right?
Yeah.
Absolutely. You're absolutely right.
Yeah. Well, that's a tough thing that you got to deal with. But I love that you said the answer is the work ethic. That's all you can control.
All you can control, what you can do.
And on that concept of controlling what you can do, a lot of it has to do with mindset, right? So when you started out, especially being a minority woman, all the odds are against you. VCs don't want to hear you out. I'm sure even talking to friends and family. Can you talk about rejection when you started Heal? How
It's
many
the
people were
worst.
like, no?
Yeah. I mean, I heard no. I still hear no every day. I heard no yesterday, right? I hear the word no every single day, maybe 3 times a day. We can't do it. We won't do it. We refuse to do it. I refuse to do it, right? Listen, if you aren't a bobblehead about this, right, you're not going to make it because the easiest thing to do is say no. And that's how you know that someone's not invested. They're not thinking when they don't listen and they just say no. Move on and try again. I very carefully observe why people say no to me. Did they even understand me? Were they listening? Do they actually care? Right? When I observe that they're not paying attention, I move on. I don't waste time again. Right? And so you can't let yourself be demoralized. You really can't. And it's so hard. It really is, but you got to get back up, try again. And like I said this in the very beginning, your answer is on the corner. You just got to keep walking your yes.
Yeah, and early on, was there a time where sometimes that rejection really got to you? Because I know for us, with the
Absolutely.
generation of Instagram, a negative comment destroys us, my generation.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. It's hard. And yeah, it happens every day. You have to have a tough, thick skin, right? You really have to believe in yourself. You have to have lots of confidence. If you have a partner in business or in life, you really count on that person. But I think that's kind of what you do with these podcasts, right? You kind of give people hope and you give people stories, and people can turn in here and say, I felt bad, but I feel better. That's the value you provide, right? So you have to find ways to lift yourself up. Maybe it is a podcast. Maybe it is teletherapy. Maybe it is going for a walk. Maybe it is quitting, right? Sometimes the environment is so toxic, you must quit and start over. Scrap it and start over. That happens, right? But it doesn't mean you should ever fully give up.
yeah. And do you welcome failure, doctor?
Every hour of every day, right? Every hour. There's a famous quote, if you are not failing, you are not learning, right? every hour of every day, right? I do. No matter what happens with Heal, I learned more in 7 years of working here than people learn in a lifetime if they don't want to, right? So it's a privilege. Every time you fail, it's you got the chance to fail. It's a lucky thing.
And obviously, Heal is so successful. So I'm so excited to see the growth that it has. But in that situation, for some reason, if God forbid something went wrong, do you feel comfortable knowing that, hey, I can always go back and just full-time practice?
You bet. Or do it again. Try again. Start again. Do something different, but start again. But you bet.
So do you recommend for my age group, should we be finding ways to hedge ourselves, whether it's a master's or medical things like that?
Education is weird right now, isn't it? It doesn't mean much, right? And this won't be a popular opinion, but some of the least impressive people I know are Ivy League trained, right? Making a spreadsheet, making a deck, being a consultant. I don't know, does that really get the job done, right? And again, probably not the most popular attitude, you know? And yeah, am I not good at those things? You bet, right? I hate them, you know? But I have to say, I learn more from watching people, and listening to people and how they do things, right? I had my car washed the other day, and the guy that was washing the car, he took a piece of slime and he put it inside the air vents to get the dust out of them, right? 9 out of 10 people would go at that vent with a rag or something like that. And this guy took his kid's slime and he cleaned, the little crevices of my car, right? Genius. It's genius,
Wow.
you know? And people would think, the guy's washing your car. If it wasn't for that guy, my car would be disgusting. I wouldn't sit in it, right? You can learn so much from people who don't have an MBA from Harvard, I promise you. And those people are changing your world and you don't even know it, right? So I'm really big on the world educating me. I'm very privileged, like I said. And when I was a little girl, my parents took me around the world and I saw that in places like India and Brazil, 5-year-olds are begging for food. If you're in this country and you're listening to this podcast, the likelihood is where your next meal is coming. You have all the chances in your corner. Use them, right? Pay attention. That's what you need to be learning.
I love that you just said that. And I think that's something I struggle with. And I know a lot of people struggle with is being able to have gratitude and putting things in perspective, especially when it's little things like, oh my gosh, Starbucks got my order wrong or whatever it is, right? Just
Yeah,
anything. We got to have that gratitude and put
yeah,
things in perspective.
yeah, yeah. You made that comment about Instagram, right? If you have that kind of free time that you can be sitting on Instagram getting upset about what somebody said about you, you're not spending your time wisely, right? It isn't important what somebody thinks about you. It's important what you think about you and what you're doing with your time.
And I love hearing your take about things about, taking what people think about you. Because even me, for example, so I had the mayor of Miami on my podcast a few weeks back, and I was
Mhm.
still getting DMs from people randomly around the world like, oh, well, why didn't you have the president? I'm sure you, okay, Humana invested 100 million. Well, why didn't they invest a billion, right? There's always someone
Yeah.
that says, why didn't you do this or why didn't you do that?
It's one thing at a time, right? One thing at a time. The mayor of Miami is a big deal, right? Especially Miami right now is a very interesting part of our country with tech and healthcare and whatnot, right? So that's a big deal. And that mayor, right, will grow and become somebody that that will also help your career, right? So I'm telling you, there is literally no one that I talk to that I don't think there's something to be learned here. There's something I can get out of this. And you have to approach everything that way. If you focus on the negative stuff, you will just be chasing your tail, right? If you focus on what you've already done and where it can lead you, I mean, the sky's the limit.
Yeah, and I hope the audience listens to this part because this is a testament to you. The amount of employees you have, the amount you're working, which I don't know even how often you sleep because you're just working so much. The fact that you still responded to me so quick, it's just, I think that gives me, even without being an employee at Hale, it gives me a little bit of sense into the culture of your company.
Yeah.
which seems like it's that open arm, loving culture. Hard work and
Yeah,
get it
yeah.
done.
Me and Nick are married, right? So we had approached our company with the love of two parents, and that is exactly right. Like when I lead with love, right? When I think that someone needs something from me, I respond, and I am a very responsive person. And I think that sense that I'm looking out for you is how I want people to look out for our patients, right? I breathe those cells, so that's a very important part of who I want to be, for sure. And you're right, I don't sleep much, but it's worth it to me. It's worth it to me. I'm building something that I believe in, and I want it to stick around. I want it to last through the ages, and I want patients to depend on us and get access, right? And I want to work with the kind of people that fall in love with that notion.
And how do you manage, life with children, a love life, just your own health? How does someone manage through that, especially with the amount that you're working?
It's probably the thing I'm worst at, actually, right? That notion of work-life balance, I'm not good at it. And I very openly admit that, right? I do have a lot of help. I have a nanny who helps me with my children. I'm involved with my parents and my in-laws, and we see them and they help us with our kids. And they're the type of people that give us a place to talk and a place to share, right? I have a wonderful husband, right? Without whom I would have nothing, honestly. Um, so I have a lot of support in my life. Am I the best sleeper? No, I'm not, right? Am I going to get to be a better sleeper? Maybe, maybe in my life when I'm done doing the things I want to do, I'll sleep better. Am I in the best shape? No, I'm not, right? I will find ways to go for a walk and do some phone calls, right? I will find, intermittent fasting to make sure I'm not, unhealthy. But honestly, it saves me time because I'm not making food in the middle of the day, right? I will find ways to take care of my patients by telling my nanny to come 30 minutes early. So I do things to optimize my time. I multitask, right? But I'm not perfect at time management or free time management.
So you take a lot of measured steps as opposed to saying, I'm going to take a lot of these steps. I'm doing a lot of little things that can add up over time.
Yes, I would agree with that. I would agree. I would agree that I have a lot of people who love me and help me, right? And I would agree that I have, as you said, a work culture of people that want this to work, right? They want this company to work. And so they will say, what can I do? And I will say, well, you know what? It's not really your domain, but could you help me get this done? And here's the vision I have for it, right? That's, without people, you can't be great, right? You have, everybody who rises is stepping on somebody's back, right? I mean, my nanny alone, she's the reason we're on this call. She's the reason we've seen thousands and thousands of patients, right? She's the reason I built software. She's the reason I got makeup on to get on this call. You don't even see her, but I literally, if I was to ever write a book, it would literally be, waiting on Candy, right? My nanny, you know, because she's the reason I have so much. So learning how to take those measured steps and who you can count on and who loves you, who wants to support your growth, that's part of building anything, a family, a
Mhm.
business, your own personal growth, right?
So I love that you said that, at the end of the day in life, you have to depend on other people. Just like you mentioned there, my father, who's a thoracic surgeon, always told me that I should strive to be something like that because he feels like he doesn't depend on anyone because as the surgeon, he's calling the shots, right? So where I told him, I
Yes,
argued back with that and saying, yeah, that's true, but at the end of the day, you have the nurses that are there, you have
that's right.
everyone on the back end that handles things.
That's right.
So you always need to, that's why it's important to be a good person.
Yeah, yeah. And a lot of surgeons feel that way because what they do is not trivial, right? Cutting someone open and leaving them on a table, many surgeons that's the reputation, right? Like a godlike complex. But the truth is, right? Somebody got them into surgery, somebody made sure they were safe, somebody is assisting them, somebody is closing for them, somebody is bringing them back to recovery, right? And to the floor. And so there's no question their hands are critical, but the success of that patient leaving the hospital depends on so many people. not the least of whom are their family members who might even be wheeling them downstairs, right? So that this, it's true, and it's hard to see all the people that are helping you, but they're there. You just got to look.
Yeah, yeah. I love that. And before we transition here, talking about, we want to get your thoughts on college and how much you think it's worth it. I know we touched on it a little bit, but real quick for the audience, if they want to find out just more information about Heal, where can we go?
Heal.com, HEAL.com.
Okay, awesome. Thank you, doctor. So in terms of college, a lot of us in the last year, obviously due to a pandemic, did not have a commencement. So, and that was one of the reasons this podcast was launched, to have a mentorship in your pocket, because I was blessed to have mentors. You and I talked about, growing up being with blessings. I was blessed to have so many mentors, even my own parents. They taught me work ethic. They taught me
Mm-hmm.
how to be educated, how to
Mm-hmm.
work hard. So what would you say, in a small 20, 30 second, what's your little commencement to the kids that did graduate amongst a pandemic?
Yeah, I mean, what an amazing accomplishment, right? To turn your life of learning on its side, learn from home, deal with all the distraction, the noise, the disappointment of missing all those coming of age things, prom and graduation, and being with your friends for a last time before you go on, right? In the next parts of your life. What an amazing accomplishment. Something that no one will be able to say that they did necessarily as long as you're alive. So big congratulations to you. And, if you can get through this, there's almost nothing you can't do, right? Keep that in mind.
Yeah, that's amazing. I hope people listen closely, because what Dr. Renee has built is a phenomenal company against all odds. It's just amazing. So thank you for sharing that. Now, on that topic of college, obviously you have a company, and this is something, who knows, down the line that could be passed down to your children, for example. You never know. What's your thoughts for the future, telling your children on going to college? Because now it's so easy. I go on Udemy, I go on Coursera, I can take all these courses online, a lot of it. So are you going to be telling your kids, hey, I want you to go to college, or it's up to you?
It's a great experience. Just such a great experience to be in school because you build relationships, you learn social, betterment, right? It's not all about the learning. Even my kids who are very small are not in school right now. They're not interacting with their friends. They're not pretending to be superheroes. They're not bringing their lunch to school. They're not able to see what happens when a kid can't bring lunch to school, right? There are realities that happen in school that we don't know and we won't learn unless we're in school. So it's not just the classwork. It's also the notion that these are your counterparts. These are your friends. These might be your enemies. These might be the people you build a company with. These might be the people you fall in love with and get married to. I don't know, but you've got to go there and live it and learn it and fall in love with it, right? And then do something great. And like I said, I don't necessarily think you have to go to an Ivy League school to be great. I really don't. I didn't. My resume pales in comparison to some of the people that work for me, right? But they still work for me. So I think it's really important that you go to school and you observe and you listen and you learn. And if you can travel the world, that you do that too, right? Because the way that other people live outside of Los Angeles or Chicago, the way people might live in the Bible Belt or the Appalachias or Colorado, it's different than you and it's wonderful. And there's something to be gained, right? The way people live in India, in the Philippines, in China, it's wonderful, right? There are societies that are existing on a wisdom that we don't understand and we should learn, right? We should learn and we should listen. So it's not just about the friends you make or the classwork you take, but it's all those experiences, I think, put together.
I just love so much that you said that, because the networking part and the friendships is huge. But the part that I want to echo is the fact that a lot of us don't have the Wall Street connections. We don't have the Harvard
Right.
alumni connections.
Right.
We resort to community college or our state school. So
That's
the
right.
fact that you can sit here and tell us that, as someone who's built a huge company with an impressive valuation, on top of being, a minority woman, and you can sit here and say, you don't need that top 10 school. You don't need the Ivy League. You don't need the Wall Street connections. You can still come out and do something if you have conviction and put your mind to it. I think is what motivates me, just listening to you speak.
Absolutely. And I stand by it, right? I did it. I don't have those connections, right? But I did do it.
Yeah, and that's a testament to you. So thank you so much for sharing that. So in terms of just, habits, what daily habits do you build to have success? Because you're someone that you have all these employees, you have to have a certain, habit structure in place for the work ethic you have. What are daily success habits look like to you?
So, I think I wouldn't call them daily success habits, but I'll tell you qualities, right?
Okay.
So being responsive is an important one to me, right? Taking seriously when somebody asks you a question, answer them, right? Looking someone in the eye and saying, I don't have an answer or I don't know the answer is important, right? Being honest.
Hmm.
And I'll say that work ethic to me is number two, right? So responsiveness and work ethic. You will never meet someone that says, I don't work hard. I dare you, right? You won't find them. And even if they think I'm an idiot or I did go to a terrible school, they will tell you, well, yeah, she does try, right? She will work hard, you know? So these are two really important qualities. I think the final one I'll say is every single day I have one resolve that literally has nothing to do with heal. And it's my kids, right? Every day when I go to bed, I want to know that my kids have a full belly and a full heart, right? I made sure that the day they had was wonderful. They did something wonderful, whether it was a school project or some cake they baked at dinner or some movie they got to watch with me on my bed, something that was wonderful for them, right? That is the one resolve I make every single day. If you want, you can call it a habit, right? Has literally nothing to do with my work, but it is the most important step I take every day.
I'm sure it's something you look forward to every night.
It is. It is, right?
Yeah. And those qualities, are they what you look for in candidates too, when candidates are interviewing?
I'd have to say yes, right? Because I think we'll get along better. And I know how hands-on I am, right? And I have a quality of being a micromanager if I don't feel that work is getting done, right? It's an annoying quality about me, but I won't drop the ball because I am responsive and I do have a work ethic, right? So if I work with people that are dropping the ball, I will manage them, right? So I want to work with people that are responsive and that do work hard because I know that we can succeed faster and better, right?
Yeah. And what about for my generation, us in the Gen Zs and even millennials, 25 to 28 to 30? What's your biggest fear for us or challenges that you see within our generation?
I actually think you guys have the world, the world is your oyster, right? I think you have been born into tech, right? You do understand Instagram. I don't care about Instagram. I'm too old. I barely care about Facebook, right? So, for me, you know how to live this way and you can be so connected to so many wonderful people. Your bridge to getting things done is so much smaller. Mine used a telephone, right? And a flight. You know, you
Hmm.
don't need that. So, I don't worry about you guys at all. I think that if you use technology as a part of your daily living, you're going to be a part of solving problems and you're going to stay connected. And in fact, what I would say is use that to your benefit, right? Don't waste the time on the negativity. Waste the time on, you know what? I met this person who knows this person who knows that person, and I could easily talk to that person about an experience I want to have or something I want to accomplish or a place I'd like to see, and you can get it done in three little steps in the same hour, right? In my day, we had to use a travel agency. You guys don't even know what that is, right? So it's believe me, it's a wonderful time to be your age. And I think about when I was your age and any regrets I have and what I could have done better. And so many stupid people I wasted my time on. You don't even have to do that, right? You can just keep moving, and keep learning and listening.
Yeah, that's so amazing. That's such a positive comment to leave us with here. But now, in terms of when we graduate college, would you say that it's better to go work for someone for a few years, learn the basics, or should we go straight into obviously, if we want to, go straight into that entrepreneurial route? And if we have hopes of launching a company like you did.
You should do either or. What seems right? What idea do you have? What do you think you need to learn more about? Maybe you do an entrepreneur route and you're not quite ready, so you get a job and then you go back to being an entrepreneur, right? You do you. What do you think is your next best path, right? And again, have conviction.
Hmm. And you're a very driven person. So do you have 5-year, 10-year plans aligned, or are you just looking for the next day?
Uh, I would say I had 5-year plans, but now I'm pretty lucky to have 1 week plans, right? I want to see what comes of Heal. I want to maybe do something else. I want to raise my children and focus on, bringing up kids who are enjoying a wonderful life that I hope to give them, right? So I wouldn't say I think as far ahead. I will tell you, I don't necessarily, I was watching the Grammys last night, right? And Beyonce, who's such an amazing woman, right? She said, there was a time when I worried about being number one, right? I don't worry about that anymore. I worry about what's going to come of my kids. Am I being true to myself, right? I think that's where my head is at now. I've done a lot of interesting things. I'm proud of what I've done. Do I want to do more? Sure. But do I want to be who I said I would be all these years? Yes. Do I want my kids to see that? You bet. Right?
Yeah, and I love what you said about what Beyonce said. I think comparison can be a devil in some regards, comparing
Yeah.
to that person's lifestyle versus
Yeah.
this.
That's what's so amazing about her. She doesn't worry about what negative naysayers say. She just wants to be good to herself, her own viewpoint, right? I think that's so wise.
Yeah, and testament to you again, like you said, there was a lot of no's, a lot of doubt, and
Oh
you
my
still
gosh.
kept pushing and pushing and
Yeah.
pushing.
Yeah.
I just wonder if after the headlines came out of that investment, if you had people that were the naysayers reach out to you and say, "Hey, now this is amazing."
Sure they do. But let me tell you, I also had those same people say, oh, it's so what? It's not enough.
Wow,
Big
really?
deal,
Yeah.
right? People with free time, they will do anything, and that's the point. If you have the free time, you're there to listen to it. And if you don't, you're getting your work done. So, keep yourself busy.
Yeah, yeah. And then, sort of my last question before closing out here is, and it might be a deeper question, but you own this company, you're doing something you love, but are you happy?
Yes, absolutely. Right. And I'm doing what I love because I am happy, and I'm happy because I'm doing what I love. If I wasn't happy, again, I have the lucky privilege of getting out of it. Right. And I would say that to anyone, that if you're not happy, make sure you save up, get yourself to a place where you can make a different decision, right? Go to school, learn another skill, learn another trade, even if it means you're sleeping less, right? Even if it means you are spending a little less time doing the fun stuff or partying or going out with your friends or raising your kids, right? It's for a cause, focus on it. And I know, I want to make sure I'm clear, right? I know there are plenty of people who don't have all the things I have. And when I say you can do this, I might sound like it's a foreign concept, but I have seen so many amazing women, especially with children. They are single, they go back to school, they become doctors, or they become restaurant owners, or they start their own company. I've seen it so many times. You can do it. I know you can do it, but it will take some sacrifice, and you have to be ready for the sacrifice.
Amen to that. And to be clear, I know you said you grew up with privilege, but for you to do what you did still against everything and push through, there's no privilege there. That goes back to your work ethic and what you were able to accomplish.
It does, but I want to be clear. There's not a second of the day that I don't thank God that I have the parents I have, the in-laws I have, the husband I have. There's no way it's not in part due to the privilege I have, right? It's guts, but there's some privilege there. And I don't minimize that for a second. Yes, I work hard because somebody gave me the confidence to think I could do it. That is a privilege, and I'm very well aware of it.
Absolutely. And this is a mentorship podcast. So growing up or even through Heal, have you had mentors, outside of your parents?
I have. I've had many mentors in places I wouldn't even know to look, right?
Hmm.
My nanny mentors me. When she sees that I'm disappointed, go take a walk, Renee, right? Go take a break, you know? My husband is my mentor, right? I did not marry him thinking he would be my mentor, but he talks me through things, right? And I'm his mentor. I give him advice and ideas, right? So mentors are all over. Some of the people I work with that might even be my employees, they give me thoughts and ideas, right? Some of the people I can't stand working with, I learn. So I don't want to be like that. I want to be different, right? That's mentorship, you know? So mentorship is a very big term, and it's everywhere. You can be listening to a podcast, You can be listening to someone on the radio. You can be watching American Idol, right? There's some serious, impressive people on these shows, right? So mentorship is where you find it, and who you want to be and what you want to be and who you don't want to be. You can learn in these scenarios.
I actually really like that you can find a mentor in anyone. And
Yeah.
I think even for me, when I look at myself working with different startups or even, reaching out for podcast guests, I think, people look at titles and experience,
Yeah,
but you can learn from anyone.
you can. And let me tell you, the more self-important someone is, the less value they're going to provide, right? Because they're worried about themselves, you know? So again, can you listen to a podcast with Elon Musk or Jeff Bezos and learn something? Yes, right? But these are extremely successful, busy people. So they're giving you pearls on their time, right? The rest of the world is just sharing and you're paying attention.
I love that. And then lastly, where do you see Heal in 5 years from now?
So I hope HEAL is continuing to take care of the vulnerable populations in all 50 states. I really hope that's what we do. And I think that's the next unknown.
And as the founder, I see you're well on your way with the culture, the work ethic that you've built. It's phenomenal. And if people want to find you on, is there any, I know you said you're not really a social media person. How can someone, either follow Heal's journey or you, or any way to support if people are interested?
You can email me anytime at renee@heal.com. So RENEE at heal, HEAL.com. And I'm also on LinkedIn, right? So if someone wants me, they can find me right there as well.
I just gotta say that you run such a big company that you're still, the fact that you give out your email like that, it's inspiring to me. I want to go work right now.
I'm glad to hear it. I hope I did that for you. Thanks again for this opportunity. It was a lot of fun.
No, thank you so much. That is Dr. Renee Dua, who is a phenomenal woman that is leading a phenomenal company. And I hope you guys found value today, because I personally found a lot of value. Make sure you check out Heal, go to heal.com and see what they're doing and what they're building. It's really phenomenal to watch. Thank you so much for your time.
Thanks again.